that when you have you just like a Pavlov's dogs that you've trained to salivate on a bell, like they're going to have this, 17 short cues, one chase cue, one montage, and a song. Like I get tired of cranking that shit out. Like I'm a composer. I listen to vast music. I imagine things that are 45 minutes long. Why are you limiting my dreams?
Yeah, yep.
Like, why are you putting me in this freaking cage? So whereas other people just said, hey, take the money and shut up. Like they were depression babies, and the refrigerator can never be full enough.
I have a question from Aida de Moya. She's from Dominican Republic. Actually, most of our guys are from the DR today. Well, you're a jazz composer. You went to Dick Grove School of Music. That's how we met, actually, through Dick Grove. And I said it was like when I lived in the Dominican Republic, it was probably 99, 98 when we first communicated. And then how did you go from being the jazz composer to film and TV? How did that happen?
Well, in high school, I took graduate classes, private study in 16th century counterpoint with a nun, a gray nun at a women's college, women's Catholic college. I would leave school in high school to study 16th century counterpoint because I wanted to write better lines. And so I was taking what was basically a college graduate class in counterpoint. Then I took music theory as a junior in high school to learn music. But I tell you, when I discovered you could order scores, my first score that I ordered, pocket score to study, was Appalachian Spring by Aaron Copland. So though when I first heard Don Ellis, I was knocked out, like in the early 70s. I would hitchhike from where I lived down I-5 with weird people to Eugene to catch Don Ellis in concert or hear him at Portland State. And so I think I came to jazz not even caring what jazz was. And it was sort of modern jazz. It wasn't, I wasn't listening to Coltrane and to Charlie Parker. I sort of learned that in college. I went back and learned that. So I've never considered myself totally in jazz, totally in all those things. Like the minute I folded my group Jazz Forest, I was already working on an opera. I told everybody, they said, hey, we're sorry we're not doing the band. I said, yeah, well, I'm working on an opera right now. I just turned on a dime and it doesn't matter. So I'm interested very much in symphonic forms and anything music. There's not a bag that I don't know. And what I find stuffy about jazz is that it's become kind of a formalized thing, like in LA, when we play a jazz club, I like people to drink and have fun and joke and have fun in the audience and in the band, because Duke Ellington would like that. Duke Ellington had Snooky Young, who was playing, fifth trumpet, who didn't have any music, because all his job was to do fills and add jazz to these crazy charts that Strayhorn did. Like you have a wild card, of jazz is the stuff that happens in between the notes. It happens, so I haven't found very many people that are true to jazz. You listen to Pat Metheny, who's done so many different bags and he'll go on tour with 2 people, then go on tour with 9.
Yeah.
Do one bag and do that. That to me is a consummate musician who can improvise, who can take a melody and express it and go crazy, but also could play Bach, that also could play Wes Montgomery and play the socks off of everything.
So actually, he played like Wes with the fingers, with the thumb.
Yeah, oh yeah. So there's, I wish I was as good in jazz as I am in other forms, but I tend to get off on the sculpture of the music, and I love the notation. I love getting I can sit there and get off on the notes looking at it when
I
you're
know.
supposed to get off on the sound, but I'm more architecture but it's an abstract, like it's never a definite thing. So I don't know. I can do jazz pretty well, and I can do large canvas like Gil Evans type of works. But I just find that you go to play jazz and people want here's the head, here everybody takes a solo, drum solo, we come back to the thing, we're done. Like I kept throwing forms at people, like I would do charts, and then the piano player would come up and say, "Hey man, I tried to figure out what you were doing with the extensions in the solos because you're not using the chord progression that was in the head." I go, "Yeah, I know. Get over it. You truly." And then we're going to do the same thing over again. Like I hated the formalism of it. So I would piss off the classic jazz guys and go into a rare and more Bartok meets jazz.
You know me as a composer too. So that's what I like too. I don't like to be like, this is what it is. Head, solo head. I like to, as a composer, I like to explore things. And now that I am lucky enough that I don't have to make money from that music. It's like, I can do whatever I want. And, with the latest album, people loved it. And I loved your album too, the one you sent me, the red one. Yeah. I love that album, man. That's well produced, well arranged, well composed. So it's a great jazz album. Do you have it? Is that on sale on Amazon or something?
Yeah, it's up there. And I mean, I sell like 5 copies now and then, and it costs like $50,000 to do.
I know.
And you make like $5 off of it. You just have to do what you do. And that's the sad thing about art, is that we, to get your art in before the audience, you have to go through so much. You can't, there's no easy way. There's no, here I have a studio. You have a studio. I have a vast studio. Now I can sit here and work myself, but getting great players in, there's an energy that comes from their life, their craft, their contribution, people in a room making music. Like I have a picture of the cover of the Abbey Road album, where the Beatles are walking across Abbey Road in the snack room of the studio, because it was 4 people in a room making music. That there was a microphone. The producer was saying, "Hey, can we hear the tambourine?" Like there's a thing about creating with people that I love. It's just I love it. But the market for jazz is weird. Everything's weird. So you just have to do it because you want it. Whereas, say I do these stupid, animation shows. I mean, I make, like DuckTales, I've made millions of dollars. Continues to be a bank account from something I did 35 years ago, and it just keeps going and going and going. Then I can crank out an album and it doesn't even faze me, to do an album. And I have another album already recorded that I haven't released with Jazz Force, and another one we never did record.
Okay.
So I have crazy long, huge things, but I don't know if people get it. I mean, I'm hearing a symphony. I'm hearing symphonic jazz. Like you hear those strings come in and things stretch, and the interaction between the string section and the pads and the development and key relationships and who's playing what and the horns, and it's like a vehicle. It's like creating a play.
Mm-hmm.
And you have these characters in the play, like an O. Henry short story, and they're all contributing. Like I knew when Pete Chrisley he's going to do, or what the guitarist is going to do, or what the drummer is going to do.
Yeah. And
it was always a struggle to get them to understand what I was doing. I always felt like they didn't understand me. They would work hard on the music and try to play it, but they never got outside of the chart and started to say, "Oh my God, what's going on?" They were just struggling to handle the notes. Like their job was to be a technician.
I can see that with my band. When I play with other musicians that are not the musicians that always play with me, it's not the same. Because the ones that they play with me, they go off the chart and do other things. It's like, yeah, I loved what you did tonight, but other people can't do it. It's like they just play the notes, and they play it well, but it's the notes. That's what's on the paper.
When you listen to like a guitarist like Muddy Waters, he didn't play anything fast. They believed that the slower they played, the more expressive it was. And so everybody's in a hurry. Like to them, everybody's in a hurry. But you listen back to Muddy Waters, you hear the blues and you hear all that stuff. And they grew up in these weird post-slavery areas of Alabama and Georgia. And they would make a guitar out of pieces of wood and barn materials and learn how to play it. Like there's an expression, like most of my symphonic things now are like slower than 70 beats per minute. They're just, I think there's like a correlation of tempo and expression. Like like bebop wants to be really fast, wants to move because we want to see how fast everything can be, because they were reacting to something that was corny in jazz. So I think we fell off the wagon somewhere in the 70s with jazz. And then when it all sucked up to new age, and then when it all sucked up to art, basically all jazz that's popular now is R&B.
It's funny that you say that. Some people tell me, yeah, this is a new jazz artist. And when I listen to it, it's like, that is not jazz. Yeah. I mean, I listen to it and it's like, yeah, that is not jazz. That's something else, which is pretty cool, well produced, well played, but it's not what you think it is. They call it that though, and it's like, man.
Yeah, and I sit here and I watch the sky, I watch the earth move, and I think about our position in the planets and how we are in the universe, and I'm thinking of bigger thoughts. And so the music forms have to expand. So probably the thing they'll remember me for is that I did not feel comfortable with the status quo. And so I was breaking the like when people would come to our concerts, like with Jazz Forest, I would say, look, relax. If you want, take a pillow and sleep in the back. Lay on the floor and look at the stars, because I want you to drift away. I don't want you to be aware that we're at the B section. I don't want you to be aware of that. I want you to be in a trance.
Isn't that experience? It's not like just that, not like a form that you can actually just follow like a formula.
Yeah, it's like it's not a comic book; it's a novel. Like I'm a composer. I'm writing big ideas. I've spent, so far about maybe, I'm going to be 66 in July, and I've been a professional since I was like 15. So for 51 years, I've been, messing around. I'm not done. And I want to think big forms. None of my pieces now are less than like 11 minutes.
You told me you were writing an opera.
Yeah.
Is that your new project, or there's something else you were doing?
The hard thing was that I had, like you need a story. When you're doing an opera is like a film, it's like it needs a script. You can't just write music and say, I'm going to write an opera today. So after I got in, I wrote about 4 or 5 pieces. And then I said, I need a story. I sort of kind of backed into it by accident. So I then started working on a writing, and I had to get all of the writer's journey to learn all that, because I didn't trust anyone to be a writer, like to come in and write my story, because it was too intimate, and it was too much. It was about there's all these now books in science where they're studying trees, and I'm around the trees all, in this forest, where they're all the roots are connected in a forest, so that if one tree needs water, the other trees will give it to them. If one tree needs sugar, it'll ask for it and it will get it. And the off trees that don't cooperate, it's a community. It's and their photosynthesis allows them to see, not like we would see with our eyes, but they see things. They know what time of day it is. They know where the sun is. Follow the flowers. They follow the sun. So they're very aware. So I tried to write a story about a woman who had PTSD from being like a war correspondent.
Whoa.
And somehow she was given a menial assignment to go to Yosemite and somehow encountered sequoias that were practically sentient, that said, look, the forest is burning and, everything's wrong. And, and she didn't want to accept it. So I had to work on that story. It took me months. And so I would write a piece, hand it to my assistant. He would work on it for 2 months because they were vast, and then we got a college in Oregon that was going to do the temp workshop, sing it. And then the COVID thing came. So so class was dismissed just like the week we were going to record, like ready to go. Yeah. They'd been recording it. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm a good story writer, and that I had to work on. I must have read 40 books. I bought thesaurus, a thesaurus of emotions, a thesaurus of rural places, a thesaurus of negative emotions. And what I learned is how fragile every human being is, how fragile I am. So I learned a bunch of things, but I'm just scratching the surface of what's possible. And then if I create that opera, who's going to do it? Is the Met going to do it in New York? Is Leipzig going to do it? Is Houston Opera going to do it? Like, it costs $10 million to produce an album, to produce a opera now. So then I start calling around to get singers. They all want a fortune. Like, you need a choir, so you need at least 16 singers. So they all are in like a mercenary mode.
Yeah.
So it's not like you've got the opera companies on your side and that there's a built-in structure to build these things. So I just go, man, I don't know. How am I going to, I'd have to put in 100,000, 200,000 just to do the demo version.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm producing the songs, the ones that I'm caring to do. And they're more like Eric Whitacre kind of choir pieces with orchestra, but they're slices of that story. But I love the challenge, but gee whiz, it's like getting beat with a baseball bat voluntarily. Wow. It's like going in a room and having a bunch of mugs just hit you, on every side. So I want to finish my symphonic things that I'm working on right now. And I'm even writing kind of an elegy for the 100,000. We just passed 100,000 deaths of Americans in the United States. It's like a 9/11 every day.
Yeah, every day pretty much.
Every day is a 9/11 plus. How can we be indifferent to that? So I'm struggling to know what to write, to know what to say, to know what to express as it is.
Man, every time I open the news and I see what's happening and how people are suffering, and then I see how other people are not caring about those people, it's heartbreaking. It's like, what is happening in the world?
Yeah, I know. When did we stop being human? When did we stop?
Yeah.
This is a human thing. We're going to have to figure this out. I guess the plague, the Black Plague, lasted 300 years. And they're saying that this virus is so smart that you can't dumb it. You can't dumb it down and make it herd. The herd immunity won't work. and it recognizes any intrusion into its DNA and RNA, so it won't allow replication that takes away from what it is. So it's like the movie Alien, you know, it's like the blood drips through the layers of the spaceship, and it's a higher level of invasive species.
Mhm.
And I get Nature magazine, which studies the science, all the dissertations from around the world. And they one of the articles said they think it's been around for 100,000 years, waiting.
Wow.
It's been waiting for 100,000. It didn't just come out of a lab in Wuhan. You know, it didn't escape a lab. It's been waiting and designing what it's going to do. So if the hope is that if we can figure this out, we can move forward. If we can't figure it out, so much more bad things are going to happen, and the economy is at risk. You know, like Boeing, like we're in Seattle, they're going to let off 10,000 employees in Boeing, and that affects 70,000 because for every job at Boeing, there's 7 other jobs: the sandwich shop, the supplier, the, you know, whatever, the airlines, you know. So the ripple effect is going to be astounding.
Of course, yeah.
So,
You know, I saw it in universities, of course, in many universities, including ours. I mean,
Yeah.
they laid off, I think it was 55 people in
Yeah.
pretty much a month. It was like, oh my God, some of our friends. It was like, what's happened? But you know, it's what it is. Unfortunately, we are going through this, and we have to figure it out, like you said.
But you know, if what I think the kids have to do is they have to break the biggest challenge. The biggest thing is to be a problem solver. And if you're in the music business, you go problem solve. How am I going to get in the door?
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to be good at my playing? How am I going to have a great MIDI system? How am I going to make music that matters? How am I going to make alive? These are all challenges which, you know, mankind has gone through much worse and will go through much worse in the future.
Yeah.
So we have the tools, but we've been lazy. So this is going to kick the lazy out. This is going to kick that out. And so even bums are going to have to get with it. You know, like everyone has to get with it or not. You know, that's just, it's just like on or off, you know. And my wife having cancer, it's either do it or don't. Either live or die. So it's a very simple equation, but problem solving and being smart. So the greatest thing you can take from music and from education will be your ability to solve problems and to create a way forward. What a wonderful thing. What a wonderful challenge. I wish I was 12. I wish I could freaking take this on. I love battles. I would make Patton look like a peacemonger. Do you play to lose? I don't play to lose. If I was playing Monopoly, I would play to win. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, you play this game to win. You play this game to not lose your humanity. But, you know, like, there's a skill base that's really important, and either you have it or you're going to be put to the side. So, you know, get off the pot. Like, you know, you look at a city like Los Angeles. There's 17.5 million people, and you're one person.
Yep.
So you can give up and go back up by 5, or you can face the music.
Well, in the Family Guy job, you had a great creative opportunities because you had a great orchestra, a great choir every week. Yeah. Okay, now that you moved from that, and you don't have all those people, of course, but how was it when you were doing that big, and then you had to do all these different styles too, which kept you, you know, busy and creative as a composer. Tell me about it. Yeah. Tell me, just, you know, whatever.
Well, the funny thing is, I'm again the kind of person that wakes up, and even if there isn't an assignment, I want to create. I put my shoes on and I want to go. I want to turn on stuff. So I've had to conform my studio to what I want to do. So in the MIDI lab, the MIDI room is fully equipped, with BBC Orchestra, Spitfire, Synchron Stage, Vienna.
By the way, I got the BBC Orchestra. I just got it, the Pro. It sounds great.
Oh yeah, no, it's well thought out because it's things that I've been griping about for 30 years. Somebody finally figured that out. It snapped in, like having solo first chairs to add to the expression, because you push the expression wheel on most samples to 10 or 270 or whatever it is. It doesn't give you enough vibrato, it doesn't give you enough expression. So when my MIDI guy, Colt Wolf, puts in a score that I hand him fully done, and I'm working in my studio in the house, I hand him the stuff. He spends maybe 2 8-hour days or 3 8-hour days just inputting the individual parts. Then he spends like 3 times that with the performance data, getting each one to perform and listening to each one. Then at the end of the day, I come in, I listen, and I say, there's not enough of this, not enough of that, try this, try that, just kind of come in fresh with new ears and do it. So we're not saving any money. I mean, if I wanted to, I could hire 40 musicians, probably cheaper than it would take to do the way we produce things. So it doesn't always make sense financially. And when you balance things, say it costs you 14 grand to record this music, it would have cost you 14 grand to call a band. So I almost feel like saving up my schmeckles and calling different individuals. Like on that jazz album, I called Bob McChesney to play trombone on one of the pieces, and he said, oh yeah, sure, So I hired him. He has a studio. He did 2 takes of his trombone, blew mind-blowingly great, and it's done. Like I don't have to. So I'm sort of, you look at a project and you say, this might need live people. This might need, I can get away with the MIDI stuff. We did From Earth to the Stars, which has a guitar concerto I wrote for classical guitar in a classical style. And there's not a live player on the whole thing. We found this great guitar library from Beijing called Ample Sounds. That has the most astounding guitars and basses. Just, and the guy that does it they're Americans, but it's for a Beijing company. They'll buy a $40,000 rare Martin or something and sample the crap out of it, and the interface is beautiful. It literally is as close to the real thing as you can get. So you have to have all those things. You have to have all those sounds, and I have a Prophet 12. I just bought a Sequential Circuits Pro 3 that's back ordered. I run them through guitar stomp pedals. I have all that stuff. I have loopers. I have, I'm like a kid. I have, all kinds of stuff. And then I have the mix, the control room with Pro Tools totally happening.
Well, after I saw your control room and I saw the SSL, remember, I bought it. I cried away almost. Yeah. I bought it. Yeah. I love that machine.
It's nice. I mean, it emulates the real things, and I still buy. I'm still buying microphones, and I'm still buying all kinds of little goodies. I want to create a Maserati, not a Greyhound bus. So the Maserati is equipped for what I want to do, and you have to overcome like human sense when you're communicating from a human. It's not a robot or an animation. It's humans. So like when they do an animated cartoon and they spend $200 million on Pixar thing, they'll spend 5-6 years, and there are people that just specialize in babies, like how babies express. If there's a character, like a baby would make this face, like they've mapped all those 10,000 expressions so that it really evokes. So that's the same thing with the music. If you're going to live or die by MIDI and subdividing a 4/4 measure by 10,000 integers, you better do the things that cause the human receptor to understand that, because otherwise it thinks you're presenting a calculator.
Yeah.
It's a calculator. Like, we have so many senses that we've evolved over years for sex and sadness and empathy and joy and humor that surpass the language of MIDI and the software. We're at the disposal of these designers that have designed these conduits for musical thought. But we're going to look back and find these to be really, really like piano rolls, that have been all punched out. They play, hello, my mommy, hello, my baby, hello, my and it just plays in the background, it's a piano roll. I mean, it entertain drunks. But anybody that wants to be, moved is not going to be moved. So we've always been trying to figure out what is real. And so we play in as much as we can. Mm-hmm. And we tweak the crap out of the performance as much as we can. So it's very labor intensive. It's not instant, and it's not like right now.
Yeah.
And, it's really
you are still writing on pencil and paper, and then you get it to your assistant who mocks it up for you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, basically what I want to be great at is composing and orchestrating. I don't really care about the performance. Like if I want the London Symphony to play it, I will get up there and say, it's 8 free. Here we go. I don't want to learn cello. I don't want to spend my life learning cello. I'd be good at cello. I'll be the shittiest cello player in the world, but I want to be the greatest composer. So the question is, do you divide your time? So I keep learning the software and then forgetting it and learning it. I think I'm on my 8th round where I'm learning all this stuff again because I can't get my guy up here to work, and I send stuff away, and they're not available. So, and they don't have the same system I have, so they can't just work on their system because it's not up to the task. They still have to bring those files and start over. It's such a Maserati. I mean, you get in that chair and it's so amazing. So, I don't know. People, a bunch of the composers in the Canadian composers thing, when they ask me this question, they say, "Why do you do this?" They did not understand it. I had a hard time communicating why, because they're just going, "Don't you do stuff just to get money? Aren't you just getting paid?" No, I'm past. Yeah, I passed that. I'm in a rare, freaking little world where I do not care. I don't need another dime. I don't need another dime. And every gig that's come to me the last 2 years, I've turned down. How can you fit yourself? I don't want to be the monkey anymore. I don't want to be sitting there and do it, and then I got to get their approval. And they have no musicality. They're filmmakers. They think about camera angles and selling it to HBO and all that stuff. I do not care at all. I could be a superior filmmaker in an instant because I've worked on thousands of shows. They get to do 3 in their lifetime. If they've done 3, they're in the Hall of Fame. I've done thousands. I have 40,000 plus compositions in NASCAP and SACEM. And each one of those took time. you know, so I've already put in my dues. Why am I working for these imbeciles? You know, I really look at it like preschool. Like, I want to work with preschoolers. You know, if Spielberg called up, or Bertolucci, or somebody that's like a filmmaker, great. You know, my sister's a filmmaker. She did a film in where was it? It wasn't Milan, Naples, and it was a foreign film, you know, thing. She's won 70 awards, and I won best soundtrack in St. Petersburg, Russia, and in some place in Italy. And all they did was track my guitar concerto to the film. Those awards don't mean anything to me because I didn't score it. They just did a needle drop. You know, they go, oh, the music's just perfect. I don't know. You know, they filmed to it. So I might entertain certain filmmakers under certain conditions if it was something I cared about. But that's a luxury that only a few people get. I mean, I want that on my tombstone, that I did not have to care anymore.
You know, the thing is, you paid your dues, man, and you are one of the, I think the music you put out is some of the best music I've heard on TV in many, many years. I mean, the music you put out for Family Guy, for all this stuff, for Fairly Odd Parents. I mean, still that theme is like, you know, in my head all the time, because it's great music. And what we hear now when you turn the TV on is a lot of crappy music.
Oh, I know. The commercials that all do the 2-5-1 thing with the piano and arpeggios. Like, they all copy. I mean, it's literally in the same key. The Verizon commercial, and then the next one, and they all think during the COVID, we're all going to be into pianos, you know, piano samples. And, you know, and these jingle people, they do it in a laptop, and they're in Manhattan, and they just had a creative meeting, and they go, do do dee do dee do do dee do do dee do dee do 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 dee do dee do do dee do do dee do dee do do dee, and they turn that in and get $4,000. I mean, now you've created like a bad thing, you know, like they want that. Now the people, they think the audience is stupid. That's always the difference between me and like when I did television I remember as a kid growing up watching cartoons, I wasn't dumb. I enjoyed the freaking things. So I didn't want to be talked down to. I thought Carl Stalling was a genius. I mean, it was humorous and interesting and musically cool. So when I started working for Hanna-Barbera, I wrote my ass off and wrote all these great things. And then when I was doing a session for Hanna-Barbera, they were recording my music. I was sitting in the booth, and there was this weird guy with long hair sitting next to me. And he goes, at Evergreen in Burbank, said, "Is this your music?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What's really different than all the stuff I hear out there? I don't know who this guy is." I said, "Well, you know what? Those little kids have brains. You know, they're honestly got souls and brains and think. And if you want them to stay for the car commercial, you better write something that makes them think and makes them treats their intellect with." So I gave this guy the riot act, you know, like I normally do. So I get a call like a week later. My agent says, "Hey, what? I don't know. Did you talk to the head of Disney Music?" I said, "No, I didn't." They said they want you to come in and take over the show called DuckTales. They're firing the composers. I said, "Well, I don't know." And then I got a call from the guy that was the head of the music, and he said, "Hey, you don't remember me? I was at the session." He says, "You know, I really loved what you said," and he said, "I want you to do this. This is like our big series. This is our big thing, because I like what you cared about."
Nice.
You know, and he says, "Isn't it nice to get a gig because you did the right thing?"
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, he's used to passing out work to people that don't care. People don't, you know, Hans Zimmer doesn't care. They you know, so, you know, you wear your heart on your sleeve, and that's again that human stuff. Like, you take a chance being a human that you may alienate somebody, you may make a friend, you may, 50% of the people are going to hate you because you're wearing a green shirt. Like I did an experiment. I would go to producer meetings and dress like a grub. And I would get just as many gigs, and then I would go, shiny and, ready to go, and yes, sir, and I'd lose 50% of the gigs. So I said, it doesn't matter. I could go in the nude, I could wear a sailor hat and nothing else and get a gig. So 50% of the people are going to hate you right off the bat, and 50% are going to love you, no matter what.
Yeah.
So who cares? Just be yourself, damn it. And Seth MacFarlane, and all these different people knew that I cared. Like if you're a producer and you care, you're going to want composers and directors and actors and people that care. If you're a producer that doesn't care, you just want to get it done. You just want Discovery Network, crank it out. You don't care. So try to find people that care. And if you don't care, that's fine. You can be that way. Most people are like that. There's a small sliver of people that do. But guess what? I'm a lab rat that escaped. I escaped, and I'm fine. I did not die. I did not die from the rat poison.
Well, to me, having you as a friend, it's been great. And talking to you about all these things every time we talk, it's been, inspiring every time. When you started the conversation today, actually, you mentioned that you were studying new scores, and that's the same I'm doing now, because I'm on sabbatical to compose my new album. So I am I bought a lot of scores from different people I admire. Let me go over those and analyze music and see what they are doing, and maybe I can come up with some my own stuff later. But for now, I'm just enjoying, literally just listening to music, and like you, me too. I love to see music. I love to read music. When I hear it and I can actually see it on paper, for me, there's nothing more exciting than that for me. When I see the notes. And that since I was a kid, I always loved to see the notes.
Mahler used to bring Strauss scores. Like Strauss would give Mahler scores. Strauss and Mahler would give Strauss scores. Schoenberg gave Mahler scores, and they would all come to each other's concerts with the score.
Yeah.
And they'd been listening to it, and when Schoenberg started getting very atonal, Mahler said, "Hey, I'm not hearing this. But I love what you're doing," and they tried to understand it. So the brain is like a big filing system, and visual information gets filed in certain areas, and memories of emotions get stored in other areas, and music gets stored in different places. But the brain, in order to survive, stores it in 3 or 4 different pockets. It doesn't just have a hard drive, and there's if you have one hard drive and it goes down and that's all you have, your data's gone. Mm-hmm. The human brain evolved to store it in different places. So if I went deaf, I could still hear music by seeing it. If I was, if I lose a sense of hearing or a sense of touch, the brain will have stored this stuff. So there's kind of a cross relationship within the architecture of the brain. So I find that the visual information, but I'm trying not to rely on, say, oh, doesn't this look cool? I don't want it to just look cool.
Yeah.
I really want to care about what it sounds like.
Yep.
Because I'm not writing for deaf people.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean. It's like now I listened to something like, let's say 10 days ago that I liked, and I found out they have the score for that. So I went and bought it. So I wanted to see what they did, what that composer did for that piece. Now, one thing probably the last question for me, and then you can say whatever you want. But one thing I really liked, we talked about this before, but it's the reverse engineering you propose. Can you explain to everybody what that is for you?
Well, when I was coming up, what drew me to Hollywood was seeing Star Wars. When I saw Star Wars, and so many other composers of my era just saw Star Wars and said, that's it. And they packed their bags literally within the next week or so to go to LA. Because we heard in that you could write symphonically, because a lot of music was going rock and going pop, and all of a sudden there's this like Wagner-esque, Straussian type of world that John Williams created. So I wanted to know, since they wouldn't tell us, since Jerry Goldsmith would not tell you, he could have, but he didn't. And John Williams doesn't tell you. He just gives you breadcrumbs. So I tried to reverse the engineering. Okay, so I tried to learn everything I could about their process and read every article where they got interviewed. And I say, oh, okay, Jerry watches it and he tries to get an instrument. So he asks himself, if the Sand Pebbles was an instrument, what would it be? If the Sand Pebbles was an emotion, what would that be? If that was a chord, what would that be? And so it's like a sieve. You start out with a broad Aristotelian idea, and then you get smaller and smaller and smaller till finally you're saying, if this character had a motif, what would it be? So that it distills it down. So then finally I have this reversed engineered process, distilled information. So on the left side of my piano, I have all this thematic material. So when I'm writing, you can hear all that stuff in Family Guy sounds coherent and right because it had all of this structure built into it. I mean, like J.R.R. Tolkien, when he wrote the Lord of the Rings trilogies and all that stuff, I mean, he would know where Sauron was going to be the bad guy and the hobbits represented, weak people that, didn't have any power. And somehow they were going to save the day. And he had all these, it took him his lifetime to work that out. So I don't want to reverse engineer something that crazy, but I wanted to understand Jerry Goldsmith, John Williams, Bernard Herrmann, a few of the cats. And so too, if I was at Dick Groves, they would teach us to do takedowns. So Larry Mahobrak was the rhythm section teacher, and he always carried an armload of records under his arm. I'd say, Larry, what are you doing? Oh, he says, I'm doing takedowns. So it would be like Bob Marley. It would be all this other stuff. I'd say, well, what is it you're doing? And he would teach us, I just want you to do a takedown of the hi-hat, the bass rhythm guitar 1, rhythm guitar 2, and what the keyboard's doing. And if you want to get fancy, put the hi-hat and the snare rhythms. And he would just do that daily. Like, you only have to do 4 bars to break it down. So the best producers like Max Martin, who produced all those hits, Backstreet Boys, up to all the latest things, he understands melody writing. He understands all that. So he's reversed engineered Gershwin. He's reversed engineered all the pop hits. That guy doesn't take anything for granted. I mean, I don't know anyone writing songs that are pop songs that are just winging it. And they're not just copying people. They really are into it. Like, I know people that have done things for, Adele and different, one album of the year and stuff. Well, for instance, the kid that produced his sister, for Billie Eilish, they're friends of ours, like our friends down the street. And one of the ladies that played French Orange, her kids had a garage band, and in it they had the kid that's the producer, Phineas. And they kept talking about his younger sister that was like got a deal with EMI. He said, oh yeah, his sister's really got a deal going, and she's got this thing. Well, she was homeschooled, and she would go to the ASCAP, the Grammy Association had a writing class at the Grammy Museum, like Monday nights. She would take the bus from Pasadena there as 11 years old. 11. You know, so these people are not, everybody looks at them and say, oh, you know, they look splashy and they just happened. They all put in the work. So they would have to reverse engineer any kind of song, any kind of expression thing. They didn't just happen. So that when Phineas would pick, and he would work in Ableton Live, you know, and Phineas would come to my Ravel studies, come to Jazz Forest. We had Phineas and Dave and all these different kids that were in the band come and open for Jazz Forest.
Nice.
You know, like I said, people are milling about, let's have you guys play. And they would play jazz. You know, so these kids just are just like normal, off the street kids. But the one thing that drives them is they're able to take the time to tear things apart. They don't just go with the flow. They go deeper, they go into it. They understand maybe a little bit of the history of it. They understand some vocal styles. So they say, you know, on this album, I want this. I don't want that. You know, you need to say, I want red, I want purple. I want, you know, you need to decide what you're going to, there's no right or wrong, but there is a context and a pretext and a methodology. Like, you don't have to be a slave to any system, but you need to be a slave to learning.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's a given. If you're not, like John Williams, he writes for 3 hours in the morning, sketches every day. Goes to the country club, goes for a walk, you know, with a putter, doesn't play golf, but just putts, has the same lunch, goes home, orchestrates. The last like 3 films he did, he orchestrated himself. He composed and orchestrated, which is amazing when you're like 90 years old. And I mean, these are not whole notes. Then he has dinner. Then he does fugues. He analyzes fugues, writes fugues, studies scores. He might be studying Liszt. He might be studying Hovannes. He might be studying somebody. I mean, so that's a sickness. That is not normal. That is not human. Like a compulsion, like Rain Man, you know, like Judge Wapner at 4:00, you know. So I think there's a mixture of compulsion. Like they call that drive. You know, like you have to have a drive. Like Little Richard had a drive. You know, people have a drive to leave the comfort of the suburb, to move to Brooklyn, to move to South Central, to move to somewhere, to go to Greeley, to study with you, you know, they have to have a drive, but it doesn't stop when they graduate. It just started. So if you don't have a taste for that, really evaluate what you want to do and be a teacher. There's nothing wrong. It's a wonderful life. It's a wonderful thing to help people. You benefited from all the people that taught you. And it's a wonderful human thing. Next best thing. But if you're going to do this, you have to be compelled or create that paranoia.
Yeah.
You have to worry your ass off that you don't get it.
Yep, that's what I always tell my students. You know, when you graduate, it's the beginning. It's not the end of anything. It's the beginning of whatever you're going to do. Now, the drive has to be there, because otherwise, you know, with all the ups and downs we have in our careers, if you don't have the drive, you're not going to make it.
And I don't know about you, but my parents did not push me. They didn't care if I got a D in math. They didn't care if I woke up in the morning. I mean, they were didn't just like, whatever, man, you know, whatever you want to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, loving, but they did not care. They didn't expect me to go to college. They didn't expect anything. I wanted it. And we had a forest behind our house, and I built forts. I built tree forts, 6-story tree forts. I would steal the wood from job sites where they were building houses that was in the wood pile, and I would build. Nobody forced me. I would try to get all the kids in the neighborhood. Hey, man, you're going to show up to build the thing? I built underground forts that could hold 30 people.
Oh gosh!
I watched the Viet Cong. You know, on every night was the CBS News with Walter Cronkite, and they would show the Viet Cong building these I said, I can do that. So I built underground fortresses. Nobody forced me. So there must be some compulsion. I must have some of that, because here I am, nobody's forcing me or paying me or coercing me. And I'm killing myself to write music. I put $1 million into my studio. I didn't have to do that. I could do other things. I don't enjoy that. I want to die. I want to have my heart explode. My dream death is to get completely wiped off the face of the earth doing what I do.
Okay.
Be nuked. I want to be nuked in my chair writing music. I want to write till the pencil is stuck in my hand. I want to die with lead stuck in my freaking hand. And one in my heart, one in my eyeball. I'm not going to be a pretty corpse. I'm going to die with blood and guts and going for it. And I'm 66. I am just getting started, baby.
I know.
There's a drive to it. So, I'm not putting myself as a poster child or an example or bragging. I'm just saying this is who I am. And, if you look at Charlie Parker, if you look at any of these people, the extremists, they all have the same. We could all sit around and have a great laugh.
Yeah, it's funny. Maybe that's why we get along so well. Because, I have this same, these people, some of these people actually know me personally. I have that drive. I always had it. I never stop. I can't stop. It's like, if I feel like I'm doing nothing, I can't. It's period.
If you were going to say, okay, I'm going to switch, I'm going to go into business, how long would it take to be an executive vice president at IBM or Microsoft? Well, 20 years, 30 years of kissing ass, working hard, showing up, doing the job, being an expert, retraining yourself, fighting off the young people coming from below. So it's not like music is hard and everything else is easy. It's all hard. So you're going to have to pay your dues no matter what. Childbirth is hard. I watched my wife. I saw her have a baby. I could not do that. I know who the superior people are. It's the women. So I'm a wimp. I could not do that, but she did it. So there's, it's going to be hard no matter what. So just bite off a big piece of jerky and chew. Start going at it and do what you love. The cool thing is that maybe if you did the Microsoft thing, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be living for the weekend. You want to go skiing in Vail. You're on your second marriage. You're an alcoholic. You're unhappy, but you got bucks. So I say, how do you want to balance? What do you want to balance? You could be a suffering musician, and you're suffering over chords. We have 12 notes. Don't you get tired of 12 notes? When are we going to break past this? So it's I don't know. Life again, the greatest composition is not the notes. It's not being in the practice room. It's not the performance. It's who we are. And who you are and how, and the challenge of being loved, the challenge of saying something that matters, the challenge of making someone weep, the challenge of weeping with someone else. A lot of my musician friends in LA are out of work because the sessions have all stopped. I weep with them. That's a music. That's a music. When you can relate to people so much that you weep with them, you weep. That's a piece of music. That's a quartet. That's a duet. So that's where I'm at.
Well, Ron, man, it's been great talking to you as usual. I know I told you 1 hour, we're in 2 hours.
I don't care. The only thing is I'm out of my Sauvignon Blanc. I've been out of that for quite a while.
Well, people are saying thank you, applause. It has been great. One of them told me that you have a fan forever now.
Somebody has a glass of wine.
Oh gosh. Well, Ron, man, it's always great talking to you, and you have so much knowledge to share and so much music to give.
Well, thank you too. I mean, look, Socrates, you do great work there. You've given your life to help everybody, and you're going to eventually be running the planet and running the place, and it couldn't be from someone with greater heart, because a great teacher is a great heart and a great mind, and you have all those things. Like I can't be a great teacher, but you're a great teacher, and you're showing patience. You're a voice that listens. You're a voice that tries to point them in the right direction. So more than you thanking me, I thank you for what you're doing. And it's just fun to have one friend left in the world. It's just, I think I got like 3 friends. I pissed everyone else off on. So I cherish the few humans that are still fun to talk to.
Well, you have me. You always have. So I am here, man.
Likewise. And, the best to all your students and, to your family. And, I'm sure that Astrid and Liam are going to just run the planet. And I'm so glad I'm not pissing them off, because I know they're going to come for me if I did,
Well, man, thanks for everything. And hope to see you soon. Maybe we'll go there in the summer again.
Yeah, when the world is not face masks and deadly viruses, which it will, we'll get out of this thing. Hopefully, we can all build a better music business and have fun. And we're here. I keep building this place as a wonderland. And it's a national park for creative musicians.
I know. It's a great place, man. You have a great place there.
Well, thank you. And you guys take care there. It's so fun to see you. I mean, it's so much more fun than phone calls or emails.
I know, man. It's been a while. So say hi to Larry for us, please. Say hi to Larry for us. And
I will.
Man, love you.
All right. Love you too. And you guys take care out there, okay?